All right, so as we finish up with how to factor a polynomial, I want to show the diagram that that will be given to you in class, or that has already been given to you on how to approach a factoring problem. So I drew somewhat of a sketchy diagram in class, but I wanted to show you where it's a little bit cleaner than how I have it in class, and just show you, okay, that number one, definitely, is there a greatest common factor, GCF? If so, fact out the GCF. We have two tiers. The first tier is the uh, GCF. Then the second tier determines how many terms are in each problem. So as we finish with the factoring, how to factor a polynomial, we've talked about if it's four terms, the factoring by grouping, the chop-chop method. We talked about when it's the three terms, if it's a perfect square trinomial or not. If it's not a perfect square, that is where we use the X puzzle with the slide and divide method. And then if it's two terms, so we just finished right now if it's a difference of squares, difference of two squares. So I want to finish this off with if it's two terms, is it a cube? Is the question a perfect cube? So I want to talk about that as we move on to the next lesson with the last part of factoring. And then we'll put it all together and actually complete an assignment in class together with me asking you, is there a GCF? How many terms? What method? If it's two terms, is it a perfect square? Is it a perfect cube? So I want to focus on cubes right now. So you're not responsible for learning the formula at this moment, but you are responsible for knowing how to use it if it's in front of you. So we're going to talk about the formula of cubes. Now with cubes, there is a sum of cubes and there is a difference of cubes. So we're going to talk about those. All right, so sum and differences of two cubes is what we're going to be looking at. And you will know the difference between the sum and the difference. One, because either it's going to be a plus sign or a minus sign. And also, how to recognize if it's going to be a perfect square or a perfect cube. Now, how to determine if it's a perfect square, then your power will begin with the smallest possible exponent will begin with the 2, and think of multiples of 2, 2, 4, 6, 8. If it's a perfect cube, then your power will begin with the smallest possible power will be a 3. And think of multiples of 3, 3, 6, 9, 12. So when we're talking about perfect cubes, we're saying 1 because 1 cubed is 1. We're saying 8 because 2 cubed gives us 8. We're saying 27. Think of three identical factors that will give you, okay, that perfect cubed number. We can go all the way down to 1,000 because 10 cubed gives us 1,000. So as far as variables, x cubed, we can say x to the 6th, x to the 9th, x to the 12th, because you can find three identical factors that will give you the that power, x cubed, x times x times x. For x to the 6th, x squared times x squared times x squared. So as far as the pattern, the sum of two cubes. This is what we're going to focus on for a second. And we see the question that we're going to work with. That is an exponent of 3. I know it's kind of hard to see, but we have c to the third power plus 125. So here's the pattern. So your question will start off where the first term and the last term are both perfect cubes. This is how you recognize if your binomial is a perfect cube. You have two terms. The first and last terms must be perfect cubes. So your answer is going to be in the form of two parentheses, but your first parenthesis is going to be written in binomial form. So I'm going to show you how to find that one factor. Okay, so this you're saying whatever we call the first term for F, and whatever we call L the last term, we're going to add those two numbers together or variables, and we're going to put some numbers in. I know it doesn't make sense, but I want you to follow the pattern. And then your second parenthesis is going to be in the form of a trinomial, where whatever we call the first term, we're going to square it. Then you will always take the opposite sign that's in the first parenthesis. So we have a minus. And in the first parenthesis, why the reason why we begin with the plus in the first parenthesis, because the question starts with the plus sign, sum. So let's finish the trinomial. So whatever we call F and L, we're going to multiply those together. That last sign is going to always be plus, a positive, and then whatever we call L, we're going to square that. So now I'm going to show you how to find your F and L. So our question, let's rewrite the question so you can we can use the template of how to factor a sum of cubes. So we have here c cubed plus 125. So I want you to help me out here, because c cubed is a cube, perfect cube. 125 is a perfect cube. And we're calling the first term of that we see F, and the last term that we see in the question L. I want you to fill in for me the missing piece here. So here we go. Let's start with 125 because that may be the easiest right now. What could we put in the parenthesis that when we cube it, what number could we put in the parenthesis that when we cube it would give us 125? That will be a 5, because 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. So what we're doing here is using the pattern. Wherever we see the variable L, we're going to plug in, or we're going to substitute 5 in for L. Now let's find the first term. What are we going to call F? Let's fill in the missing piece here in the parenthesis. What, when we cube it, would give us a c cube or c cubed? C, because c times c times c gives us c cubed. So wherever we see F, we're going to plug in the variable c. Okay, so let's write our answer. And we're going to follow the pattern that we have here on that's written for the sum of cubes. So for the binomial, it says whatever we call F and L, we're going to add them together. Well, we're calling F the letter C, variable C. We're calling L the number 5. So we're going to add those together. We have C plus 5. Just that simple. Plug it in how you see it. Then the trinomial. Let's follow the pattern here. F squared. What this is saying here is that whatever we call the first term, we're going to square it. So we're calling F the letter C, so we're going to square C. C times C, we have C squared. Always take the opposite sign of what's in the first parenthesis. So there's going to be a minus sign. Then for the middle term, it says we're going to multiply F and L. Whatever we call F and L, we multiply. So we're going to multiply C times the 5, which gives us 5C. The next sign will always be positive. And then the last term of that trinomial, we're squaring. We're going to square 5. 5 squared means 5 times 5, and we have 25. So we have a binomial that's a cube, and when we factor it, yes, it's going to be parentheses, two sets of parentheses, but the first parenthesis must be a binomial. The second parenthesis is a trinomial. And I will say this, as you're working in this homework module, and when you identify that it's a cube, a sum or a difference of cubes, keep this particular formula that I'm pointing to in front of you so you know how to use the formula.